You're listening to Crazy Shit in Real Estate. You'll be amazed at all these wild but true situations that others have found themselves in. Because on this show, you'll hear uncensored, unbelievable stories from the world of real estate. I'm Leigh Brown. Let's dive right in.
Before we get any further into this episode, I've got some information to share.
Hey, y'all. Just going to take a quick break from this conversation to let you know about the sponsor of today's episode. That sponsor is, well, frankly, it's me. It's Leigh Brown University. Look, it's no secret that real estate is crazy competitive, getting more so every day. And when the pie doesn't get any bigger, but the people wanting a piece of it do, you've got to figure out a competitive advantage. And that's why I created Leigh Brown University. It's everything you need from soup to nuts, cradle to grave, point A to point B, whatever point B is. Each of you has different goals. So maybe you're a new to the career realtor, or you're a super experienced pro who can't figure out that next level. There's something in my course that's going to help you break through. It's designed for you before I even met you. So enroll in Leigh Brown University today. You go to www.leighbrownu.com and I'll see you there. Now, back to this amazing content. Hey, Gary Boomershine, welcome to the show. Tell us a little bit about, well, frankly, how you got such a great last name.
Super excited to be here. I've been looking forward to this, and hopefully it's a lot of fun. It's always fun hanging out with you and with your loyal listeners. Yeah, so Boomershine is actually, I didn't even know this, it's a Mennonite name.
Really?
Pennsylvania Dutch. I didn't even know that until my 20s. And I think we're the only Boomershine actually west of the Mississippi. So the family came out of Ohio. My grandfather grew up in a family of multiple entrepreneurs. Grandfather, my father, both were Stanford MBAs and engineers. And my dad actually started it was called Boomershine Realtors. So all of us kids, I was a licensed agent 3 weeks after turning 18.
Go Dad, go Dad.
Yeah, and learned the whole entrepreneurial thing. It was a little different though. At that time, like if you're a kid and you're told what to do, like this is what you got to do, you don't really, like I didn't love real estate. I never thought I was going to do real estate. I actually got a computer engineering degree and did the Silicon Valley software startup technology path. And it wasn't until, so 1987, graduated from high school. I worked for Accenture, one of the largest technology consulting firms in the world. And then I did 4 startups, software startups. It was awesome, but it was like 90-hour work weeks, traveled everywhere, never actually saw the sun because I was always working. And with 2 babies, we had a 2-month-old, we had a 4-year-old daughter, so 2 daughters. And my wife and I came together, rich dad, poor dad, and said, you know what, this is no life. And we decided to do the Napoleon thing and burn the ships. I quit my job May 17th of 2004 and never looked back. So I've been in real estate investing for a very long time and learned a lot, made a lot of mistakes. And I'm really super passionate about sharing, how not to get lost in this business, because most of us got in this business for passive income and to have a lifestyle and financial freedom. And many people get trapped. They do nothing more than create a JOB, which I call just over broke. And I love sharing like my journey. I'm actually about to I'm going to release a book. It's called The Freedom Code. And it's
coming out?
I'll put it in your show notes, and I'd love to give everybody a free copy. But that will be should be out in May of 2021, so not very far out here.
That's exciting.
Yeah, my goal of the book, I've had a lot of people read it. It's really meant to be disruptive, which it's not another book on how to flip a house or how to wholesale a house, because I think there's thousands of those. It's really how to build a business that works for us. I look at real estate, what can real estate do for us? It's really the why of why are we doing real estate and what do we want real estate to do for us, as opposed to the how. The how is easy. How to buy, flip, make money out of thin air. It all exists, but people get stuck creating a business that they're a slave to. And it doesn't have to be that way. And so I believe in cash now, cash flow, cash later. I'll explain that really quickly because a lot of people say, well, I've never really heard it exactly this way. Real estate is truly like a true real estate investor, according to Warren Buffett, which I think he's an incredible guy, but it's somebody that has money. They buy a physical asset that happens to be real estate, and then they hold it for the long haul, and they take all the benefits of real estate. It actually breaks into an acronym called IDEAL, IDEAL. But a lot of us, are actually flipping and wholesaling and things like that, which is not truly real estate investing. That's transactional, which is cash now. It means, right, we buy a property, there's a one-time fee, and that's great. I do it too, but that's really a business. It's a real estate business, not necessarily being a real estate investor. And a lot of people get stuck because businesses need to always have a CEO. And if you're a CEO, if you're doing $10 an hour work, you're going to have a $10 bank account. So the value of our time is critical. You got to run it like a business, not a hobby. And so this book shares a lot of the things that I've learned, and hopefully it'll impact some people's lives. And that's what I'm here for.
I love that. So when you, in 2004, when you decided to burn the ships, and I love that analogy because I say this as a broker to agents all the time, like you can make it as a part-time realtor, but until you dive all the way in and quit the full-time job with no safety net, it's hard to figure out how deep the passion goes, because that's where you find your real strength. So when you decided to make that move in 2004, what were you going all into? Were you going all into flips, or what were y'all doing at the time that felt, okay, we can do this, and you held hands and jumped? So what angle of real estate was it?
Yeah, it's a great question. Here was the first mistake, because I don't recommend that people necessarily burn the boats, especially with two little babies.
Don't burn the bridge.
Right? Originally, my wife and I were actually going to take our nest egg and we were going to buy apartments and follow. My brother had done that, and he was very, very successful, and he bought 4 apartments that were cash flowing like crazy. And then they moved them into 3 triple net retail centers, and they're retired to this very day. That was the original plan. But I went to a seminar, one of those big 1,000-person seminars.
Did it come with DVDs? Did you get a check with DVDs?
I took a little home ship kit, and I got excited back in 2004 because I went to the seminar to learn about buying apartments, and I bought that course, and of course I bought apartments. But I got really excited at the time because I like to close. I am really a deal guy. I love to negotiate, and even at this very day, if I'm really, really good at one thing, it's put me in front of a seller, and there's no competition. And I love teaching it. I also have a sales and advanced sales course on how to build trust and relationships and build a solution to a seller's pain and be handsomely rewarded and not have to worry about price. And so a guy got up on stage and talked about foreclosures and how we could negotiate with the bank and get a discount, and nobody was doing it. Now, this was on doing short sales, and nobody knew what a short sale was in 2004. In fact,
the market was still fine.
So I bought a little home study course, and I focused on that, and I bought hundreds, and I focused on super high-end luxury 5,000 to 20,000 square foot over leveraged houses, and made a fortune. But the hard part at that time was how to find these deals, because you couldn't just call them. They weren't listed on the MLS. And so I went back to my technology roots and built a little algorithm around how to pull the data and then send out drip direct mail. And so I was targeting these foreclosures mostly in California, and I bought hundreds of them. And then what was interesting is a lot of people, and this strategy, by the way, does not work today. So I shut all that down. People started doing short sales like 2008, and I was already out of the market because I had a little niche with incredible success. It took me anywhere from 2 weeks to 4 weeks to negotiate a huge discount from the banks, and then that model changed. Now, one of the nuggets that I want to share to everybody right now is that real estate and it's just a little side note here, but real estate is cyclical. Real estate is typically a 7-year cycle. It has been like that for 100 years. It just happens that this cycle is the longest that it's ever been, year 12. And the cycles are almost identical. At the beginning of the cycle, it works very different than the end of the cycle. I see us more at the end or the euphoric stage of real estate. And the end cycle is where it's off market. We have to go direct to the seller and get really, really good at finding deals because it's so competitive at the end of the cycle. Real estate's super hot. It's super hot everywhere in the country. And there's no real good deals on the MLS or what have you. And so where I was in the cycle at that time, it was really finding direct, doing direct mail as an example. We're known, I have a company now called RealEstateInvestor.com. We're the largest marketer in the real estate niche for agents and investors finding off-market deals. We've done nearly 80 million pieces of direct mail, and I have a huge phone team and software that does all the follow-up. So managing all the direct mail, and then very, very specific, it's called direct response drip mail. It's, sending multiple times to the seller, and then the follow-up with the phone team that's doing all the phone ISA, follow-up calls, text messages, etc. And I've gotten really good at that. And that business is called RealEstateInvestor.com. We could talk about marketing if you want, but
yeah, because we have a lot of consumers that listen to the show who are interested in like all these different angles. Yeah. I'm curious about who you're reaching out to with the letter campaigns. Are you trying to find the seller who's thrown their hands up and doesn't know what to do because their house needs to have work done? Are you looking for somebody who's emotionally unable to deal with all of the pieces that are involved in real estate? Or who is the target of those, Gary?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. What we're finding right now, there's two types. One is called the big list or the equity list, and the other one is more of a distress list. These are people that are probably, either in distress or something, which is a much smaller list. What we have been really good at, and probably most known for, is going after a larger list. It's an inherited list. Most of the properties have been inherited. Most of them, they're not lived in, they're absentee owned, and most of them are free and clear or super high equity. And by the way, the list is fairly sizable. It's 18 million. So all of us on the single family side, there are about 80 million single family properties that we all have access to on public record. And what we found is that how do you target the ones that are most likely going to be the types of deals that we're looking for? These are probably not retail type of properties that are turnkey, that are all fixed up. They're properties that are value add. And so we'll pull that list, and we're really good at predictive. We probably know what works best in what area better than anybody else. So somebody can say, oh, I'm in Indianapolis, or I'm in Houston, Texas, or I'm in, Juniper, Florida. And we can say, okay, we would say that here's what your cost per deal is going to look like on average. Like Indianapolis right now is probably about $1,800 in marketing to generate enough leads to get enough good opportunities to close a deal. And if you're in Florida, most parts of Florida, you're going to probably be spending $300 to $3,500 in marketing to get a deal. And now, if you're really good at sales, maybe you're doing some creative, or maybe you're a hybrid real estate agent. You're a hybrid agent. That's a very, very popular thing for us right now. About 20% of our client base are hybrid agents. What are those? Those are agents that know that they have to compete with the iBuyer companies like Zillow, like Opendoor, OfferPad, and Second Avenue. There's a million of them that are coming, billions of dollars. And so they're going to a seller and they're coming in with a cash offer or an alternative to maybe list the property. And so we have a lot of these agents where they're taking down listings, or they're possibly either buying the property or they've got a cash buyer teed up and ready to go. And so and then some markets are harder to market. Like it really comes down to the amount of competition. Like if you're trying to do direct mail or any kind of off-market marketing in California, specifically San Diego, or if you're in Phoenix, your cost per deal is going to be a lot higher because you got a lot more competition. So direct mail still works really, really well. It has to be done right. There's a formula. And a lot of people say, oh, it doesn't work. No, it does work. You're just doing it wrong. So
I'm pretty sure that's everything in life.
right. And the harder it is to do something, the less competition.
Right. And also the higher the rewards is that risk reward ratio also has a work ethic, discipline, and reward ratio to what you're doing.
Yeah.
But as you moved into the market and you started working with these deals, you're building programs, obviously, to scale and share what you've learned. What do you find is the wildest thing you've ever seen, Gary? The craziest scenario you saw in your real estate career that made you say, I can't believe I'm seeing this. I can't believe this is happening. But of course, in real estate, you got to keep moving. So what did you run into?
Well, I would say one interesting thing is I found, especially targeting sellers direct, some of the angriest phone calls have turned into some of my best deals.
Oh, tell me about that.
So, and some of the ones that call concerned and to be removed from the mail have turned into be some of my best deals. The house that I just sold in California, the lady in 2010 called to be taken off the mail. And I follow up and tell everybody, don't assume anything from the initial lead. In fact, the initial lead, the angrier, the better. You have to call them back, but assume nothing. Because a lot of people, we don't have a relationship. When we're first reaching out to a seller, there's so many scammers out there, right? How many calls? Like I got 3 calls yesterday on my cell phone from scam artists, right? From
about the auto warranty.
Oh yeah, the insurance, or I have some IRS thing and rebate, right? It's all scam. So, and then we turn the TV on. You and I talked about this a little bit. I won't even go down this rabbit hole, but you turn the TV on and it's just lie after lie after lie. So people, when we're reaching out, sellers don't know, and you have to build the relationship. And in sales, there's marketing that generates leads. Sales converts those leads, and you have to have both to make money in this business. And the money is truly made off of the front end of the deal, finding the right deal. So a lot of people, they'll say, well, and you're spending the money. One way or the other, you are spending the money. If you're working with a realtor, or if you're working with a wholesaler, and that's how you're finding your deals, you're not paying up front, but you're paying for that cost because somebody is doing the marketing and the selling. And so I just like to go direct to the seller because I like to make all the money. And so when you're interacting with the seller, assume nothing. Realize that 97% of the profits come after the 6th interaction. And the average time from the lead coming in to closing and getting a contract is about 3 months. So a lot of people are like, oh, they do direct mail, they do it for a month. Maybe they don't even talk to the seller and then they quit.
I give.
Right. And so you have to do 3 things. You have to build a relationship, you have to build some trust, and make a solution to the seller. A solution. And so you asked the question, what is the weirdest thing? I would say those angry sellers. I had one guy, I've told this story many times on stage, but I had a guy that almost threatened my life, left a voicemail and literally screamed and yelled. And I called him back as he was a fireman. His name was Dwight in California. And I called him back and he said, who is this? And I said, I'm probably the last person on the entire planet you want to hear from. And he said, who? And I said, I'm the guy that sent you the postcard. And he just started yelling. And I'm like, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And I teach this, by the way. I am so sorry. And I asked him, what would you have recommended? I have a very specific skill set, but you don't know me. What would you have recommended for me to do? Should I have stayed outside of your house waiting for you to pick up the newspaper? Should I have run my basket into yours at a supermarket? Should I have sent you, a $100 gift certificate? And he kind of laughed. We had a conversation. Well, it turned out that he had 2 houses and his wife was in jail. They had a couple of kids. She was in jail and they had $1 million lien against the 2 houses. Oh. And the houses were pretty much free and clear. Well, anyway, I ended up buying both houses And I got the lien released for $40,000. And then I bought the houses, and between those two houses, I made $241,000 for just a handful of hours worth of work. So that was, again, off of an angry call.
Because you brought him some solutions, and you also didn't take it personally. How often do we take things personally when in reality, his stress had nothing to do with you? It is everything to do with his scenario, which he couldn't see a light at the end of the tunnel. And human nature is to lash out to other people when you're totally internalizing. So, y'all, if you're listening to this, you got to think about this with every aspect in your life, not just your business life, but also your personal life. If somebody's reaching out to you and you're not in the mood to hear it, try and slow your roll and don't yell at them. But if you're the one getting yelled at, just give them a second. I can tell you that in my 21 years in real estate, almost every time somebody has called and cussed me out for whatever reason, if I just let them talk, they'll hang up. They're all angry. 5 minutes later, they call back and they're kittens. They're like, I'm really sorry I unloaded. I'm like, it's good. You're fine. I'm not judging you for that, because people come from where they are, not from where you are. So I'm so glad that you shared that, because it was the perseverance and the empathy that got you there.
Here's the other thing. The angrier they are, it's usually not because of us. They're usually there's something going on. It might be money issues. There may be illness going on. When we're marketing, we find a lot of inherited properties because the family might be squabbling over money. Maybe dad died. Maybe the daughter's living in the house and doesn't want to leave. And so maybe they feel like one of the family members put us up to sending them. And I love those conversations, because you tell the truth. You basically, I let them know. I like to do it disruptive. I have a model that's called RAPID. And the RAPID, it's a sales model that I teach. RAPID is resolve differences quickly. In a couple of sentences, when I interact with the seller, very quickly, it's a power shift. So the seller has all the power. I don't, and I want to shift the power. So I usually will say, I'll say, my name's Gary Boomershine. My wife and I do this full time. We have 2 daughters, and we took our little nest egg and we buy property as long as we can make a modest profit somehow, some way. And the reason I tell you that, Mrs. Seller, is because I want to take all the pressure off, because you may not be a great fit for us, but I got a great Rolodex. If I can help in any way, at least you'll know like what I would pay for the house, but I want to take all the pressure off. That's how and now all of a sudden I've done a power shift. And I cannot tell you how many sellers like just completely open up. The A is I set a little agenda. It's very simple, because I say, hey, do you mind if I ask you a few questions? And then you'll give me a few answers, and maybe I'll ask you a few more questions, and it'll be great. All towards me being able to give you an offer and telling you a little bit more about my company. The P for RAPID is I probe for pain. I ask some open-ended questions. I'm not going in and trying to give an offer. Everybody's like, I just get to the offer price. There's an old rule of sales that says he or she who speaks first loses. So slow down the offer. And then the I is investigate the solution together. We come in, I never tell people that I'm really an investor. We're really a problem solver. Like if I can actually help somebody, it happens to be around their asset, their property, and I can help them somehow, some way, and I can actually make some profit in exchange for helping them, then great. And then D in RAPID is come to the decision together, make a decisive action. And so a little acronym, I do it every single call. You were asking me some of the crazy stories. My very first deal in 2004 was a seller. I drove 5 hours to go to his house. I knew he had equity in his house. He owed 165. I knew the house as is was worth 205. It was 4 acres. And I didn't know really anything about investing. I didn't even go through the full course. I think I did like 3 of the 10 CDs, and then I'm there. So I sat with him. His name was Joe, and we sat in his house for about an hour and a half. And I didn't even talk about the house. We talked about him, his family, his experience. He told me his entire life story. I take the extra time. At the end of the day, he said, gosh, Gary, you've been here, and I know that it's getting late. You drove 5 hours. And he's like, you want to see the house? And I said, Joe, I'm like, what do you want? I actually just asked him, I'm like, tell me what you want. He goes, here's my deal, Gary. I will offer you $10,000 to take the house. So my very first deal, the seller came to me and offered me $10,000 to take the house. And by just building the relationship, now, by the way, it made sense. What happened was he was $20,000 behind on the mortgage. He was not yet in foreclosure. And he figured, and he was trying to not ruin his credit.
Good.
And so he said, if you come up with 10 grand and I give you 10 grand, you cure the mortgage and I'll just deed the house over to you.
Oh.
And I didn't do that, by the way. I closed and bought the house that night. We could do that back then. And for $100 with a notary. And I ended up making $181,000 on that very first deal. That's a whole nother story, how that all came together. It was awesome. But anyway, my point in telling you this is don't assume anything with sellers. It's just a conversation.
Yes.
Right? It's an honest conversation. People are okay if you're there to make a little bit of money. I had one seller, his name was Mark, terribly mean on the phone. When I first got in, he goes, look, if you're just one of those scumbag real estate investors that's going to give me a lowball offer to try to steal my house, I'm not the guy. And I basically asked him, I said, Mark, and I do this thing called ARA. It's a little acronym. I agree with whatever they say, because I think all sellers are crazy, because they are, in any industry. I agree with what they say. I repeat what I heard, and then I ask them a few questions. It works 100% of the time. You'll be shocked. And I teach this, and I get so many people that say, oh my gosh, Gary, that's made me so much money. But I said, Mark, I completely agree that there are a lot of people out there. And sounds like, here's the R, I'm repeating, it sounds like you've had a lot of people, investors that have like really kind of given you crappy offers. I said, do you mind if I ask you a few questions? He said, yes. What would be fair if I bought your house and I came in with cash and then I fixed up the house? What do you think would be fair for me to make in terms of profit? And he goes, that's probably the best question I've actually had anybody ask me. He goes, I thought about it. If you came in and bought this house and fixed it up and you made about $40,000, to me, that would be fair. And I said, Mark, I think that's fair too. And I said, if we structured this deal where I make 40 grand and we do that deal, would you do this deal with me? He goes, yeah. And I bought that house and I structured it where we made 40 grand. I actually think on that particular deal, I got a little bit more and we split a little bit of the profit on the back end. But, you know, you basically, it's a conversation. You know, there's a sale that always happens. People, even in marriage, right? And if you don't know who sold who, you were probably the one that got sold.
100%. Every time.
It's always a sale. So it's just a conversation. Relax. This is a people business. You know, marketing generates leads, and then you do have to talk to people. There's a live conversation that has to be had.
That's why, friends, text is okay, but telephone will trump it every single time.Email, fine. Telephone will trump it. Facebook message, Instagram message, nothing beats a real phone call or a real face-to-face so that you can actually be an active listener, which is exactly what Gary's told you with his acronyms and tips. So Gary, if somebody wants to reach out to you to get any information on the programs that you provide, to learn from your experience, how can they find you?
Yeah. So realestateinvestor.com. So that's singular. Realestateinvestor.com is my company. We've been around a long, long time.
That's got to be a valuable domain, by the way. Holy smokes.
I know. That's a great story around that. We'll save for another day. I do have some gifts. You can put these into the show notes, but I have, gosh, a whole bunch of things that people have told me that they love. And so I want to give it to everybody. You can go to realestateinvestor.com/Gary, Gary -gifts, GIFTS. Also, I did a presentation right before COVID. It was the weekend that COVID started. Wasn't able to fly out of St. Louis. But it was how to build a business that works for you. And I share my journey. It's about an hour presentation, and I've got a bunch of tools on there. And that will be a place where if you want to get a free copy of my book when it comes out, you can get it from that site. I've got a podcast that's been going for a long time. I love doing just like you do. It's Real Estate Investor Huddle. the realestateinvestor.com huddle podcast, and we've been doing that for a couple of years. I love sharing and bringing guest speakers. I'm sure I'll be bringing you on to speak to our group.
You totally will. We'll talk about the wild thing I'm investing in right now.
Yeah. And this is a great business. I would just say, everybody, this business truly works. The last thing I would say is, again, if you're running a business, run it as a CEO. If you're doing $10 work, you're going to have a $10 bank account. This is a business on leverage. Make sure you're not just leveraging other people's money, you're leveraging other people's time. And, all of this came real to me when I ended up investing in coaching. So really getting a good CEO coach, not just real estate coach, but a true coach to coach you on a lot of the stuff that we have, and then be in masterminds. You're all doing the right stuff, following podcasts, but being around like-minded people, because this is entrepreneurial stuff. And, most people don't get it. They work in a world of a job. And
well, that's for one of my recent guests, and the episode, I guess, is a couple before yours with Willie Mandrell. He talks about how lonely it is as an entrepreneur who looks for new ideas and thinks and is growing. It's a lonely space. And so he created an environment of like-minded people, which is exactly what Gary's talking about. So if you're listening to this or watching this and thinking, oh, these are my people, that's why you got to stay dialed in. It's why you got to go to the show notes and connect. Don't expect somebody to find you through the magic of osmosis, because the internet does not have great osmosis skills, y'all. That is not the capital S science with a little trademark on the top that keeps being thrown at us all the time. This is like the real world. So pick up your phone and reach out. You'll be surprised who you can reach if you just call.
Yeah, for sure. And then the last thing I'll say, and I know that you've probably said it in maybe other ways on your shows, but education without implementation is just entertainment.
If it's that, because some education is so boring, it doesn't even cover that.
That's right. You got to implement and just do, and nothing's new under the sun. King Solomon said it, nothing's new under the sun. It's like, find somebody like you're doing here, find something that works and just repeat it. And then once you've actually repeated it and you start seeing success, then make it better. But don't try to reinvent the wheel. Real estate is a very easy game, but you do have to follow. I've never seen people make money out of thin air, get rich quick schemes. It doesn't exist. It takes some work, and you do have to follow the best practices. But this is a wonderful business.
It really is. And they're not hard things that you have to do. What's hard is doing them. So if you make the steps happen, you'll be surprised at what life will deliver to you. And Gary, I'm so grateful to you for coming on the show and for sharing so many insights and thought processes with my listeners and viewers. Guys, don't forget, go to the show notes, take advantage of all the free stuff. And if you download it, actually freaking read it, because you guys have computers full of stuff on your desktop. It just sits there. It's not changing you if it's sitting there. So download it, follow up, make some phone calls, and then circle back with us and let us know what you're trying that's working, because I love success stories. So does Gary. And so make sure you follow up with us. Gary, I appreciate you. Can't wait to connect in person. I'll see you at some point in the future, I'm sure.
Yes. And thank you all, and good day.
All right, guys, subscribe to the podcast, click some likes, do some comments, be nice, and all that fun stuff. And I will see you next time.
As always, I'm so super thrilled that you joined in for more crazy shit. And if you're a realtor, investor, inspector, lender, or just a regular human being who happens to have an unbelievable story that you need to tell the world about, or frankly, you just need to one-up the story you just heard, then make sure to DM me on Instagram at Leigh Thomas Brown, or tweet me at Leigh Brown, or frankly, any social network where you hang out. I'm there. And if you had some fun, then you totally want to subscribe so you don't miss out on any future episodes.